Okay, guys, this is Scott. I wanted to take a quick moment to demonstrate and reveal the fantasy trip melee, since it's been talked about a couple times. And we're talking about game components, how things might work, and what works for a very basic beginner type person. This is done again by the Fantasy Trip. Steven Jackson does um, a lot of different board games. Has been doing them for 40 years now. So Munchkin's probably his most famous one, just because it's out there the most and it's playable by family and everything else. So, but anyways, getting into this box, this is 8 inches by 5 inches by 1 inch. So it's very takes up no space on your bookshelf. There's some good entertainment value with how it goes. The back of it talks about some of the other games that you can get to go along with it, and provide some decent advertising for other gaming system plus their website. And then even as you pop off the box here, you can even see on the edges of the box, they market some of the other games in the line as well. So always something to think of when we want to market all the additional products of the games that we'd be looking to bring out. So when somebody opens up the box, and this has been played a couple times before, so things are scattered. Normally, these different counters are all on just punch cards. The colors are monochromatic, but just enough to allow for you to differentiate them on the board somewhat. Some of them are just plain black and white, but they're very, very simple drawings. Each one is also lettered. So this works well with people with color blindness, because not only do you have the character, but then you have a letter designating them A through Z, and then colors as well. And the skull and crossbones are basically any of the characters, monsters, creatures that could be battling. When they die, you flip the card over, and then you've got the skull and crossbones on it, so they've been defeated. And there's items for weapons, some for treasures. These things that say prone, sometimes your character gets knocked unconscious or is lying prone, and you can take one of these cards and put it on your character on the board to indicate as such. And some of these have different sizes. My gosh. Most of them are just like 1 inch squares, but then you have some that are much larger, like giant ogres or just plain old giants that could be attacking you, and some of them have even dragons for bigger characters to fight in battle. So besides having 3 or 4 punch out sheets for the characters, each box comes with their own dice, and these are really look good, kind of a red marbled finish with a gold copper inlay for the dots. Each box also comes with a spare Ziploc baggie, which is great just to keep all the components together. And so when this arrived, it was just totally unfilled, just sitting on top. I love that. The rule book is very simple. Again, it just fits right in the hand. 24 pages in total length. It's all black and white, but there's loads and loads of detail in it. But it's easy to read and easy to follow, and it goes step by step from talking about the components that are in the box to creating your figure, how strength and dexterity, and you don't really use your intelligence much in this one, even though you can create characters with it. But this is, for melee, it's what it sounds, right? It's just getting in there combat, using either ranged weapons or hand-to-hand weapons. And it talks about striking from a distance, striking when you get hand-to-hand or you're fully engaged with somebody and struggling and trying to wrestle. So how do you disengage from folks? How do you move around the board? It does a really good job of revealing that to you. And then it also comes with just a very simple fold out hexagonal map, 11 by 17 map. And melee is essentially just nothing but a big arena battle. And so one group of people starts down from this end, one starts down from this end, and then you just kind of fight and maneuver in the middle, and the outer areas are essentially like a wall. They're impassable. So you can push people up against the wall. In some cases, you can make a pit and you can push people into a pit and do extra damage, or a fire. Different things, whatever you can create, you can add different things to this just to make it more engaging. And so this in itself, just being an arena battle, gives you the opportunity to assess what are the different qualities, the styles, the types of weapons that are available to use, the better armor in certain situations. And technically, using this melee, you would either have your own character or use some of these pre-generated characters, which are on these cards here. As you can see, there's quite a few of them that are pre-generated, and if they survive battle, then it talks about how do you power them up and how do they advance in skill set and experience points and what have you to make them more durable. So the more you win in the melee, the stronger your character becomes before you decide to head out on adventures. And so these cards are just standard playing card size. They are a glossy finish. Recommended you use a dry erase marker. I used a wet erase marker, so I have to go back and get some of these things off when I did it. But one thing I do like about them is, so besides just the the strength and the dexterity, the move action is like how many hexes that character can move. Very visible. What are the equipment that they have, and they can have. They always either carry a dagger or another small knife weapon. But they can have two main weapons as well, a main weapon and then a backup weapon, besides having a dagger. But if you see somebody that only has one weapon, just know they always have a dagger as a backup. And then also whatever the armor is. It's a leather armor and a small shield. It's telling you it stops 3 hits. But with this game, with the armor, depending on the type you wear, it can detract from your movement. So in this case, this person would normally have a dexterity of 12, but because of the leather armor, it reduces their movement by 2. So their reduced dexterity is 10, or adjusted dexterity. And then down below, these little hexes that are here, these actually relate to the total amount of strength. So there's 12 boxes here. And so what happens is, for this game, anytime a character gets down to, sorry, I can't stay in focus, gets down to 3 strength, they automatically lose dexterity. And dexterity is what you use to actually hit or to score a hit in the game. You have to roll, you roll all 3 die. So in this case, I want to roll 10 or less in order to score a hit. So in this one, I rolled a 12, so it's a miss automatically. It doesn't matter what my strength is. Strength only plays a role in how much damage you can sustain, and also what type of weapon you're able to get. So bigger, giant weapons require more strength to deal with that. And so having a strength of 12, I need to get a weapon that's, so this broadsword I think maxes out at 12, strength of 12 or above. Anyway, so it's really cool with that. It's a blank on the other side, so in case you need to add some notes, say you had a special ability or a special weapon or some kind of a treasure that enhanced things, it's there available for you. And again, these are wipeable off. If you're using a wet marker, you need to wipe it off pretty quickly. Dry erase markers should be pretty simple to wipe off at any point. And then the game comes with multiple of those that are pre-done, pre-generated, a whole bunch. But then I love the fact that they also give you, about 10 blanks that you can do your own. You can draw your own picture, you can make your own stats, whatever you want to do. And then, of course, they give you ample room for the amount of strength that person's going to have. And again, they all have the notes on the back. So just a brilliant way to incorporate cards into that game. One of the cards is just a very, very simple instruction at its very most basic level. And that's just sometimes just nice to just to keep with it. And then we kind of talking about, well, how do the treasure cards work? And so this is an example of, you're going to roll and, 1 through 6. And so depending on what you roll, then you go to the appropriate table on the card. So if it's a copper, boom, you roll a 2d6. Everything in Fantasy Trip is done with d6. They have no polyhedral dice. It's all done on d6. So you have that, and then here's one where you have your silver table, then your gold table, then you have you roll a 6, you get a ring, then you go over to the ring table. So that's a good example of how to get multiple treasure tables on just like a single card. That's really, really easy to reference. So besides the melee, they also had wizard as well. So whereas melee is teaching you the hand-to-hand combat or the physical combat, wizard is going to go over the rules of magical combat. And so for the wizard, you actually have some blue dice. And again, these are just beautiful dice. There is the extra Ziploc baggie, the rule manual, just like for melee. Also comes with a spell references for quick references to all the different spells, and the spells obviously depend on the level of the IQ that you have. Here's what those character punch out sheets look like with different wizards. Things like this could be smoke, this could be fire, different elements of that. There is a ginormous dragon that would fit on the game board, and then this game mat is actually slightly bigger than the melee game mat. I want to say it's 24 by 24, whereas the other one was 11 by 17. So the hexes are the same size, or basically 1-inch hexes. There's just more of them, and then there's areas that are covered in that are slightly gray, or this is more like a bluish purple tint, but shaded at least, and that allows you to add more elements. Like, is it a hedge? Is it an impassable mist? Something that's going on that you can use based on your spell work. So again, really, really cool with that. And whoops, sorry. Wanted to see, I thought this one had, I thought it had character cards as well, but I guess it does not have the character cards, or if it did, I've misplaced them. I will verify that in the email. And then lastly, to help incorporate both the melee and the wizard, this was the other tool that you could use to help out with putting what you learn in the melee and the wizard portion into an actual game element with a mission. So DeathTest is a dungeon that you go into. You can play it single, or you can play it with multiplayers up to, I think, up to 4, and go through a play-by-play adventure, basically, or a programmed adventure, I guess you will. So this is like the good old fighting fantasy books where you start reading, and then you go from one passage to the next passage, and it tells you, if you make this decision, go here. If you make this decision, go here. I love that concept. It was so cool as a kid for me. Is it something that we can, incorporate into what we're trying to do with Dungeoneer or some of the other games? Possibly. It would certainly take a lot of work, a lot of storytelling, but Sean and I have been sharing some websites and some software that kind of help you do this type of a format where you're creating the adventure, but then you can break it up into different programmed components like that. And so you have this DeathTest, and then you have DeathTest 2. So again, with the smaller games, you learn the melee, you learn the physical combat. Then another portion, you learn the wizarding and magical combat. Now you have a game that you can incorporate both of those together and start to learning before you start investing and going into major campaigns where you have a dungeon master. And all of these that I've shown you so far are all solo playability, or they can be played with a group. It's either or, so it works really well. So hopefully that gives you guys a good idea of what some of the stuff we've been talking about and some of the excitement I see, where I could see our little games going. I feel this is a brilliant opportunity for the small packaging. There's a lot of stuff crammed into these things. The usability is very simple, but it allows for infinite expansions and missions and different things that you want to go to and towards various advancements. And we can this is all playable with the D6, which I feel they did a fantastic job doing. Easily could use the polyhedral as well, but the fact that you don't need to, and you can grab D6 from any board game that you might have lying around and it'll work. So that makes it pretty exciting for me. So anyways, thanks guys. We'll talk to you soon.